Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest episode of the DXM podcast. That is the DMINTI Mocha podcast. We are here today with the incredible artist, Sarah Friend. Thank you, Sarah, for being here.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, we're going to start this where we always start, and that is just give you an opportunity to share anything you would like about yourself and how we came to be here together today.
Sure, yeah. Well, my name is Sarah, if you're watching the video version of this, I'm appearing with a snap camera lens made by another artist named Sarah Meyer. I live in Berlin. I first met Colby at a residency in France that brought together a bunch of artists and technologists working with blockchain and NFTs called Glitch. I've been making art with technology for many years now. I'm also a software developer. Perhaps relevant to our conversation today, I'm teaching blockchain art as well at Cooper Union in New York. Yeah, that's a little bit what I'm up to.
Yeah, super. Where should we start? Let's start with Glitch and perhaps this. I think you deal a lot with techno-utopianism. So maybe, and this is obviously going to be broad and wide and very difficult to tackle, but maybe you want to talk about like what Glitch is and why you said yes.
Well, what Glitch is? Who knows? We'll have to ask Prima. It was a project instigated by Primavera De Filippi, who's a blockchain legal scholar and also artist who's been working in this area for a long time. It was a very strange email invite that came through. Actually, I got it simultaneously from a few different friends and colleagues. And the ask was to come and be part of an artist residency at a chateau in rural France with an undisclosed, mysterious list of other artists, participants in the crypto industry. And I like to think of myself as the kind of person who's up for an adventure. So I said yes. I had no idea what to expect. I'm not sure it was what I expected. I did have a lovely time. I met a lot of lovely people, had some strange experiences, did a lot of dancing in a Zentai suit. Yeah, was that, I don't know. That was a description of what happened, but it probably left more questions than answers.
Yeah, I mean, maybe for me, I get obsessed with the way that, these hacker types, these pirate types can kind of come together and create these little like viruses that somehow can infect and take over the world, right? And I very much think of crypto art or NFTs as a bit of a Trojan. And, so many of these things kind of relate perhaps to the idea that 1 + 1 can equal 3. The idea that there is like magic between two spaces and all it kind of takes is a little bit of electricity. So, many are, I think, unplanned, and, perhaps like dancing in a Zentai suit is just as valuable as going to the conference. So I think Glitch is definitely like a place of unexpected magic. And, I think the world increasingly feels perhaps more organized, but equally chaotic. So I don't really know where I'm going with this, but, I love that duality, and I love, just kind of the sense of play, and I love kind of in the work that you do, the sense of play that you invite in that as well. So unless Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
I
a
would agree that glitch is one of these places where or I definitely had the feeling that I'd stepped outside of normal reality to go to this other extra place. And when you said 1 + 1 = 3, I had actually that triggered for me, well, a little bit of the feeling of the whole blockchain industry, but especially the early blockchain industry of, well, I mean, for one thing, resources for artists have been generated out of seemingly nowhere. Not nowhere, of course, but it does have that feeling sometimes. And I think that glitch captured something that was very present for me in the early days of working in the blockchain industry and has felt less so, but in the later years, but really the feeling like anything could happen. Yeah, hard to articulate, but
not really, because we saw the same story with the internet, right? We saw the internet in the 90s go from this place of incredible freedom, incredible promise. Same kind of the open idea of, well, Bitcoin or Ethereum, especially, and incredible ideas being fostered, grown, and then kind of when rubber meets the road, a lot of talk, hype, and marketing, and then attracting all sorts of scammers. I think we saw a very similar thing with NFTs, more so than crypto art, I'd say, although opportunists abound.
I'm curious how you would make the distinguishment.
Oh, me?
NFTs
I
in general, as in,
Yeah,
you
I
mean
mean,
NFTs applying to things which aren't art, like real estate NFTs?
yeah. I think NFTs is just a technical term, right?
Mm,
And I think crypto art seeks to hopefully capture some of like the philosophical underpinnings of blockchain and blockchain tech, whether that's self-sovereignty or right to privacy or immutability, uncensorability, kind of expressing hard, abstract concepts to people through imagery, iconography, almost in my mind, it's almost like the writing of a new sort of techno religion.
It's definitely really ideological. It's interesting. It's funny. Okay, I think I'm thinking of a few things. We're not even talking about my art yet. We're talking about just a bunch of other random stuff. But it's interesting stuff. So actually for my class last week, we were introducing like the cypherpunks and the sort of early days of Bitcoin and talking about sort of one of the texts for the first week is the Cypherpunk Manifesto,
Sure.
which is like quite a short text. It's super utopian, and it's compelling, but it's also, you read it now and it's a little bit naive, right? Because it's like, oh, like these ideas and the ideals that people had at this time and the ideologies that went into why the internet ended up becoming what it is. It's almost like they seem naive now because we've seen sort of these massive platforms and the surveillance state and all the ways that we've become actually unfree and our attention has been captured. So it's kind of interesting to chart and very parallel maybe to what has happened or is happening in an ongoing way with the blockchain industry. Yeah, it's super interesting to revisit. It's almost like maybe there's like an inevitability of like not seeing the problems you're going to create. And yeah, but it's, I don't know. I wrote this article about blockchain back in 2016. And it never got published. It was for Dazed, and Dazed was like, this is way too technical for our art audience.
And to be fair, I did just read it about 20 minutes ago.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And it was not very technical.
No, it really isn't. Like for our eyes today, right? I'm sure they've published something like more technical in these past few years. But anyway, it kind of closes with like an Edward Snowden statement about like the internet was supposed to be endless freedom. Look what we got. I feel like there's this very similar trajectory, perhaps, that we've seen and will continue to see with the crypto industry over time.
I mean, that's terrifying. No? I mean, I feel the rhyme again and again. I want so much to get out of what feels like this inescapable black hole of like capitalism, culture, and consumption, all being so uniquely tied. And it was, of course, what attracted me to Bitcoin, Ethereum in the first place, was that we could rewrite the rules, we could redefine the architecture, and instead, for me, it feels like a black hole. It feels inescapable. And, you know, even though we might like believe that technology gives us the ability to like exponentiate our own voice, our own power, be more sovereign, I really wonder if that's the case. Now, I'm not so like nihilistic or naive or whatever it is to just like give up and fall back, but it's almost like what for? So I guess the question is, I mean, do you think that like a techno utopia is possible?
No small questions here on the podcast.
Yeah, sorry, like when I have interesting people, yeah.
Well, I don't know. I think I'm very suspicious of utopias in general.
Sure.
I think that we try to build towards utopias, but we never get them. This is funny though. I don't feel hopeless about the possibility of building new things with technology. And I actually see like a weird beauty in the inevitable failure of us executing on the vision of the sort of relationship to technology that we might want. It's like, well, we'll have some good ideas. We'll solve some of the problems we've accidentally created. We'll create new problems. We'll have to build again. It sort of seems inevitable to keep reinventing. And actually that process of change, of constantly rethinking what technology we want is interesting. And I don't aspire to the finished state, you know, where we have the perfect technology and we don't have to, you know, adapt it or rethink it in some way where, you know, well, that would be quite boring as a person who builds technology, right?
Yeah. Can I diverge a little bit? And perhaps this is related to life forms. We can take it there if you want. But what is generally your relationship to nature and the natural?
Interesting pivot. I mean, I don't, that's also quite a big question, and I'm not fully sure where to start with it. I think it's very important to bring into your life. I'm a gardener. Yeah. I'm a dog carer. I actually live in like the suburbs of Berlin, which is not necessarily like the North American picture of suburbs, but it's very green here, actually. I take I walk my dog in this little forest beside the house every day, and every day it's the best thing I do.
Yeah.
So, I mean, personally quite important to me in a sort of more existential sense, or in terms of artworks. I think a lot about sort of the human relationship to the natural world, the sort of difficulty of understanding or relating to it. There's always, I think, inevitably maybe a lot of projection by humans onto nature of what we think it is, what we think it's for. It's funny, actually, the Glitch residency that we began the conversation with is doing a drop from some of the artists who were part of it in September 14th, I believe. And the theme is ecotone. And an ecotone is a boundary area between two sort of biomes where there's more diversity in terms of species than in either separate biome. It's kind of like a transition area where they're bleeding together. And it was chosen as the theme for the Glitch auction because Glitch, I think, well, it was trying to bring together people from different sort of specialties, all working with crypto and art, to sort of create similarly like a boundary area that was richer as a result. And my piece for that is sort of exploring these. It's a face filter that sort of superimposes your face onto this like very idealized image of an Arctic landscape, which I think is maybe a point of projection for a lot of climate anxiety right now. Like, what is the landscape that you imagine as like idyllic and being destroyed? And that is true, obviously. Like, we should be thinking about those things, but there's also a way that it leads to forgetting that what nature actually is, in a way, is like the forest I walk my dog in, even though it's full of like teenagers from the local high school, like drinking wine and a whole bunch of garbage. It's also an animal habitat as well. So I don't know, I was thinking about like the way that you can end up relating to nature through these sort of idealized images of places you'll never go, and how they're almost like face filters for nature.
Really interesting. I had a conversation. Okay, this brings up so many interesting points, but I had a conversation with Sterling Crispin about like so much of the representation of imagery, how we might know nature through like National Geographic or through a series of photos that are online, and we come to think that we know the place, but we know the place, of course, in its most like idealized version, or we have an understanding of like the animals of the African savanna through the representation of the image, and we think it perhaps is the same. And I asked the question the other day, is like, what is nature in the metaverse? What is like the digital in between or wilderness? And how do we even begin to represent that and conceptualize it and bring it, like the outside in?
Well, I want to know, did you ask that to Sterling Crispin? And if so, what did he say?
I didn't. I asked it publicly. Yeah, but I always love to talk with Sterling. He's absolutely brilliant.
What was the response to the question?
It was a lot of people like submitting their own AI prompts of nature, which is interesting. That's kind of almost like a visual representation of consciousness. So, but he turned me on to this French philosophy book called Society of the Spectacle that I've been, Guy Debord, that I've been reading through. And I have been 2 years like tethered to this computer and tethered to these relationships on cameras like this. And I think more and more people are coming back together and awakening to each other again after what was for most probably an unrecognized traumatic period during COVID and lockdown, and kind of more like authoritarianism by these governments. And I live in a very also wooded, secluded place, so it's just high on my mind more and more about how we just facilitate a healthy balance.
Yeah, it's I've been thinking about this too. There's a few things. I mean, first off, nature in the metaverse. Fascinating question. Would love to return to it. But in terms of sort of, I've been thinking about the early internet a lot, you know, like I don't know. I was online when I was a kid. I had like no screen time limits. I had a very unusual situation. So I'm in my early 30s. So I remember like dial-up internet. I remember like the first internet. And my stepdad had like a computer for his home business that he decided to replace at one point, and my family gave it to me. And then they put it in my room because I was an only child. So there was like no sibling to share it. I mean, I'm still an only child. There was no sibling to share it with. So I had like completely unrestricted access to the internet from about 12. You know, a lot of my current life is a result of this, I think. But the early internet, it felt really magical. It felt like I actually kind of like a wilderness, like some place that you could stumble and find something that you didn't ever expect anyone would have put online. And there's like an illicitness to it. I definitely remember like a uncensored internet, and not that, you know, but it's just like Google pulls a lot of things out of your top search results that are not very manicured, let's say.
Right.
Now, but then there was also a feeling like information could actually be outsider. And I don't feel like that's true, or that's very rare to feel like I've actually found some like secret information now. The world is so legible. Anyway, why am I talking about this? Is because you were saying about balance and screen time and being online and being offline. And I feel like it's inverted now in the early internet, you know, like the early internet, my public life was my physical life. And then I went online to find some like special experience that I couldn't find anywhere else and felt maybe transgressive in some way, or like I was exploring somewhere that was genuinely new. But actually, I feel like it's inverted, and actually, and the place, the novel experience that is actually outside feels offline now, you know? Yeah.
Super powerful.
You agree? You have the same feeling?
I totally agree. There is like no physical space. I mean, I'm somebody who like works from home, travels a fair bit, but I spend the majority of my time like alone and at home. And, you know, my primary means of existing is now on the internet. And, you know, when I was growing up, no, there was like sports and school and socialization. And then, you know, I would go online to like play games, or, you know, in like group chats, or like AOL Instant Messenger. And it was, you know, it was pseudonymous. I am somebody who's chosen to exist publicly online, as you have as well. And, you know, that is rare in this space. But I think it is also important that, you know, there is a face to values and some consistency of that persona over time. And, you know, if as long as there is like a right to free speech, well, you might as well exercise that right as best as possible to like question where we're going, because frankly it doesn't feel great to me, the larger direction. So yeah, I agree. And then, you know, if I go on a hike, that's me escaping from my life. That's me taking time off. Yeah.
Yeah, you won't be nothing. You're completely outside of the world of capture, and you're, well, no, you're not anonymous necessarily in any meaningful way, but you're that's where potentially outsider experiences might live better now.
Yeah, I mean, I am anonymous in the real world for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know, unless I'm going to like some NFT thing, you know, I have friends all over the world, but nobody knows who I am or recognizes me in town.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Which...
Oh, same. My God, no one in the German suburbs knows who I am.
Right.
It's great. You can go outside wearing literally anything you want.
Yeah, and that's where you get to be private, which is weird.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm interested in this. I've been thinking about it a lot lately. These kinds of questions, and do you have any alts?
I don't.
No alts.
No.
Okay. Because I mean, I also think I've also been thinking
you?
about. I do.
Cool.
And we are absolutely not revealing any of the alts on the podcast, but yes. And I think there's like people who've leaned into it fully and have almost like a sense of like many fragmentary online identities.
Yeah.
And then there are people who maybe have like, and I know of many people who have like one alt, which is like a friends only alt. But then there's like the full anon alt. Like I know people who have an alt that like, I know that they have it, but I don't know what it is. And I don't think anyone who knows them knows what it is. And so I think this is also something that feels related somehow.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was like an expectation in life before the internet that you were one cohesive person. And now I think it is okay to be almost like schizophrenic with your personalities and exploring that. And I don't know perhaps what that is a consequence of, but that definitely does feel like an increase in freedom.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think it might be connected to the ways that certain identity discourse in general. There's a lot more ability to talk about different kinds of identities, language for different kinds of identities now. And I think that the ability to try on new identities online might be part of the way we talk about that.
Totally.
Now.
And just fluidity in general, right? Perhaps there's just like more information and more of a ability to maintain just like a, I don't know, like a cognitive openness to just this vast stream of information that we intake every day.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, definitely. Information processing is a key skill of 2022.
Yeah.
I have been thinking, actually, it's been a couple years since I've been saying this, but that Sarah Friend is actually an avatar. You know, like Sarah Friend with that name online is actually like an avatar of a person who I sometimes embody, but isn't, but like, and that's actually been a really freeing way to conceive of it. Is like, oh, okay, this is an event where perhaps like an NFT conference where I have to go and I have to appear as like Sarah Friend, the artist.
Yeah.
But then I get to like take her off later, you know? And I don't know. I mean, did we ever have a cohesive actual self? Like perhaps no, but it starts to feel really, like literal.
Well, you know, it's a super interesting point because you called me Colby in the beginning, and very few people now call me Colby, like because most people in this space know me as Colborn. But Colby was the nickname that my parents gave me, that all my friends knew me by. And then at some point within the last like 4 or 5 years, I just told everybody I was Colborn, and that's, you know, like my real legal name. And that is definitely like a distinct new identity as opposed to more of like the kid who was Colby. So at a place like Glitch, where kind of I'm inviting again like that childlike wonder and maybe that is how I chose to like present and share myself then.
I think that's what people were calling you there. And
yeah.
That's where I got it from. That's very funny and interesting, isn't it?
It is.
Well, I will switch to Colborn for
no, please don't.
Please
Please don't. Yeah. If you know me as Colby, that's cool.
With my like university best friend has changed her name a couple times for sort of similar like professional reasons, and it's funny to have moved along them and watch the sort of evolution of her artist self.
Yeah. Well, we should probably talk about some of your art. I first came across life forms from Nicole at Vertical Crypto Art, and she was super sad that her life form had died.
Oh no.
Yes, yes. So would love for you to just like describe that project. Yeah, and kind of like the cool little intricacies that you baked
Yeah,
into it.
sure. Well, Lifeforms is a actually what I was working on in Glitch when I was sitting around at my computer. So Lifeforms was announced in September 2021, and it opened to the public November 14th. And Lifeforms are NFT-based entities that, like any living thing, need to be cared for in order to stay alive. And the way that you care for a life form is within 90 days of receiving it, you have to give it away. I was interested in making the life forms. Well, I think I'm a smart contract developer. I was a smart contract developer before the ERC 721 token standard that we know and love today is the NFT standard actually was created. And I've been interested in this quality of tokens and token standards for a long time. Is sort of what they don't define. You know, they claim, you know, well, this behavior has to be part of the NFT. This behavior has to be part of the token. But there's a lot of flexibility or space in and outside of that. So Lifeforms is, I think that's one of the interests that led to Lifeforms. Another is maybe that I think one of the most interesting questions of NFTs and these digital assets of all kinds really is like what ownership means, what ownership models these digital assets are creating, because I don't think that there's any need. And I mean, cryptocurrencies were technically innovative because they allowed digital things to have qualities of ownership that we previously associated only with physical things or things which had an existence inside the legal system. But still, there's been almost like perhaps a contained a space of imagination for what ownership could actually be and how it could work in many implementations. And so I think Lifeforms is about sort of reframing that a little bit. Ownership as collaborative, ownership as an act of care, ownership as an active process, a participatory process, sort of all these things. And I guess in terms of the Lifeforms themselves, they're quite cute. I think they there are some features I thought I would get into Lifeforms actually this year, but it's I'm a victim of my own
Ambition.
Yeah, exactly. So they're not in, but they do give you little status updates, which are like quite that perhaps tugging on the heartstrings as the life form gets closer and closer to its needing to move date. And they, after you've owned one for 90 days, if it survives that initial trial, it evolves and takes on more colors as well. So yeah, there's a quick intro to life forms, maybe not so quick. A few of the things that life forms are thinking about, or that I was thinking about with life forms.
Do you know how many are still alive?
Oh no, everyone always asks me this. And then I have never remembered to check the count before coming into the call. I recently did like a life cycle analysis of the first 50 life forms for an exhibition in New Zealand, curated by Simon Denny and Karamia Mueller. And it's about sort of, it's called creation stories, but it's also about social graphs and things which are connected in these sort of network patterns. And so I was like, let's analyze the behavior of the life forms. And I think of the first 50, 9 of them are still alive. So not a good survival rate. But some still out there. The oldest life forms are approaching 1 year old. Yeah. One of the other findings was that of the first 50, I think something like more than 20, less than 30 of them, okay, because I don't remember the exact number, had died before ever passing hands. So by far, most life forms are created and then die without ever being passed. It's actually a little bit sad, to be honest. I don't know. I regret doing the data analysis. Maybe it saps the. It's like, oh,
well, there's something there.
The life form graveyard.
Yeah. We have 5 minutes, which is a terrible time to ask.
No, we can't end on life form graveyard.
No, we're not. We're gonna go. We'll go positive and say recently you agreed to be represented by Nagel Drexler. You have a solo show coming up with them.
Yes,
Will you tell us about that?
Thank you. Yeah, gladly. It's why the studio is such a mess. It's because it's producing physical work, and so I'm having all these things that I'm packing up right now to be picked up in 2 days. So. But it's the exhibition is sort of returning actually in some ways to the protocol layer and thinking about the infrastructure that is running the protocols like blockchains, but actually also the internet itself. So I started looking at data centers. I actually went to a data center in Berlin and did a tour of their facility. And in the objects and sculptures in the exhibition, I have a bunch of waste materials from the data center, which are going to be part of it. I would say so it's this protocol layer, infrastructure, hardware, but then also maybe the incentives which go into mining. Because I feel like, actually one of the themes from Lifeforms and from Off, another NFT project I've done, is sort of this tension maybe between like working with others and behaving as an individual in a self-interested way. I think that tension maybe between, competition and collaboration is very present, and actually maybe the defining tension of the infrastructure layer of blockchain mining. It's kind of like about incentives and collaboration and infrastructure.
And we'll just say, if you want to know more, go see the show.
Please come to the show. It opens September 16th in Berlin at Galerie Nagel Drexler. It's that week is going to be Art Week and Blockchain Week, which is to say, get ready to feel tired.
And the merge happens on the 15th. So after you're done celebrating, go to the show opening.
Exactly. With any luck, the blockchain will still be running. No, I'm sure it'll go well. Yes. I'm very excited. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time. So
we really have. Okay, cool. Oh, last thing, please let everybody know where they can find you if you're on socials, websites.
Happily, yeah. My website is isthisA.com, which is not a good URL for saying.
istisa.com.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And my handle on Instagram and Twitter is at isthisanart.
Is it an art?
This is my handle, but I'm not the art decider.
There you go.
Sometimes I weigh in, but
we'll let time will tell. Okay, cool. I'm Colborn Bell with Sarah Friend. This is the DXM podcast. Everybody, thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Breaking news.